Angie's List is now Angie, your home for everything home. Angie still has the same top pros and reviews you've counted on for more than 20 years. Only now, you'll also get access to all the tools you need to make your home a happy place. Inside, outside, big or small, Angie helps you find the right solution for whatever you need done, all from your phone. It's simple to find upfront pricing and instantly book hundreds of projects. You can even search pricing guides to see what others paid for similar jobs and easily compare quotes from top local pros to make sure you're getting a fair price. From lawn care to repairing the AC to the project of your dreams, Angie has your home projects handled from start to finish. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, they'll cover your project up to the full purchase price plus limited damage protection with their happiness guarantee. Make your home an Angie home. Check out Angie.com today. And for more on the happiness guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
Streaming only on Peacock, Ghislaine Maxwell had it all until she met Jeffrey Epstein.
Ghislaine Maxwell's charged with enticement of minors, sex trafficking of children, and perjury.
Epstein's Shadow, Ghislaine Maxwell. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
I've been watching a number of pundits and their take on what's happening in Cuba. And I have to tell you, what a mess. How people are being misled about what's actually happening there is really disturbing to me. And I posted a video today on the website, or it will be posted soon, of a Cuban girl telling you the story of what's happening there. And trust me, this is the beginning of, I guess you must call it, the counter-revolution. And what position America takes is vitally important. As the democratic leader of the free world, we can't afford to be, hiding in our basements or having a president who sends his wife to the Tokyo Olympics as if she were the president. Why didn't he send his vice president? Can you imagine how outraged people would be if Donald Trump had sent Melania Trump to meet with the premier or president, whatever he's called, of Japan? People would be crazy. I mean, they hated when Ivanka went over and she didn't meet with anybody. She just went and sat in the box at one of these international competitions, but people went ballistic. But apparently, as long as it's, as long as it's a Democrat, everything is okay, A-okay. That's right. Well, Baltimore City schools see a stunning 41% of students all below a 1.0 GPA. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a 1.0 GPA. What does that mean? That you're breathing? That's 8,400 of the 20,000 students in the high school system in Baltimore. Now, there's few stories that prove more powerfully that parents need school choice and that teachers' unions are holding kids back. Children's education dollars shouldn't go to a monopolistic institution regardless of its performance or of the family's preference for that matter. Families should be able to take their children's education dollars anywhere they want. But I'm for school choice, and apparently in Baltimore, a bastion of liberal democracy, they're not so much. They'd rather have almost half of their students with less than a 1 point. I'm still trying to figure out, what is a 1.0 GPA? Does that mean you have all Fs? What does it mean? I've never even thought about that term. I mean, I'm not bragging, but my kids always had 4.0 or better GPAs. If they brought home a 3.5, they knew they'd be grounded for a month. So they never even dared bring home a 3.5. So what's going on? What's a 1.0? Does anybody know? Did anyone ever get that? Well, actually, if you had a 1.0 GPA or less, you don't listen to this show because you're too stupid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but, almost half of Baltimore City high school students are too dumb to listen to this show. That's pretty scary. And that's just one of the things that was killing me this morning. Also, the Amazon workers. You had 24 Amazon workers quit Amazon over my friend Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage. That's right. And if you read the news, if you read the NBC headline, it is a lie. It says anti-LGBTQ book. It is not a anti-LGBTQ book. Schreier's book is about how transgenderism is being pushed on teenage girls. How nutty is this? That the American Booksellers Association issued a bizarre apology for including the book in their mailer in July. Companies that can't stand up to censorious employees betray their mission and the public trust. That's what Abigail tweeted out just this morning. You can't even, wrap your mind sometimes around all of the disturbing stories that are out there. Will I ever be able to cover them all? But let me get back to Cuba. Where is the outrage, from people in America as Joe Biden turns his back on the Cuban people? I know that for the most part, you have a whole slew of liberals who think there's never a reason to assert ourselves as America, as the great country that we are, unless we can, of course, prove somehow that there is a fundamental value to us. Well, I can tell you, there is a fundamental value to the world if an island that literally sits 90 miles off the shore of Key West has a chance to overthrow a 62-year-old regime that has enslaved it. And I use that term deliberately. But no, apparently we cannot say that. We have to, be very circumspect about the way we speak. Can't talk about anything like, outrage. I don't see any outrage from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or any of her progressive cohorts over us shutting our doors to the downtrodden. That's right. Alejandro Mayorkas made a public statement yesterday, backed up by the full weight of the Biden administration, that we will allow no Cubans and no Haitians to come here, in spite of the fact that both of those countries are in turmoil. But if you want to come from Honduras or Guatemala, if you want to come from Mexico, if you want to come from any of the Middle Eastern countries that are selling tickets to Central America so that you can make your way across the southern border where there's absolutely no border control anymore, where we now find out that the ICE has to fly these illegal immigrants, regardless of their status, around the country and deposit them somewhere. Deposit them in Florida, deposit them in Missouri, deposit them in Michigan, deposit them wherever, wherever they fancy. Any state that's red, well, they're going to get their fair share. Trust me. Any state that's blue, maybe not so much. Although if they're trying to reunite families, obviously California is going to be the prime area requested. Why? Why is this administration so hell-bent on destroying this country? I guess, maybe if you listen to CNN, you'll find out. Cubans are always treated differently. Maybe it's because there's so many of them who have had this first or second-hand experience with socialism that come to this country and then vote for Republicans. Because, you see, progressives are only interested in importing future Democrat voters. The new rule is that only refugees that the Democrats presume will vote Republican will be turned away. And this is a very disturbing trend. Meanwhile, Black Lives Matter issued a statement today blaming all of Cuba's problems on the United States. I kid you not. And, this is as insane as it gets. There's a person living in Cuba who's a hero to the Black Lives Matter. She's been harbored for decades in Cuba by the name of Assata Shakur, who was convicted of first-degree murder after killing New Jersey State Trooper Werner Forster. That's the kind of heroes Black Lives Matter has. And now they're literally blaming any problems that might exist in Cuba on us. You know, everything that's wrong, not just here, but anywhere in the world, according to Black Lives Matter, is a direct result of white supremacist thinking, systemic racism. You pick the phrase that they're using today, and it'll apply. I promise. If it doesn't apply, they'll tweak it until it does apply. It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And then we have the United Nations that wants to investigate systemic racism in America. And guess what? They get a thumbs up from Secretary of State Tony Blinken and from the Obama, well, it's pretty much the Obama, from the Biden-Harris administration. The United Nations and its Human Rights Council, by the way, who has leaders like the leaders of Venezuela and Cuba and China and Saudi Arabia, they're all members of this Human Rights Council. Think about that for a second. China, you know, they're killing Uyghurs. They used to have a one-child policy. They are, talk about a systemic racist society. China's got to take the cake. But no. They sit on the Human Rights Commission, and now that Human Rights Commission is telling the world that America needs to be investigated. That's right. Even though there are still countries that have slavery to this day and caste systems to this very day, but they're not to be investigated. Of course not. As a matter of fact, the only countries that the United Nations ever wants to investigate are the democracies, are the United States or Israel. But no investigation of the communist dictatorships and the tyrannical despots that exist in the world today. And if you're not awakening to the reality that for all their talk about diversity and inclusion, it's progressives, it's this leftist group that wants to discriminate by race. Because if Black and Latino children are not scoring high enough on competitive exams to get into the best public high schools, the progressive answer isn't to help them or to lift achievement or even improve K through 8 schools. No, their answer is to suppress merit and deny seats in those schools to Asian Americans in particular. And the main result is you get more bitterness, more resentment, and more racial division. But that's what they want. That's what they want. And that's why you better pick a side. I've been telling you this for the last couple of years, but you got to pick a side. You know, and as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And I believe that this country needs to get back to its fundamental values, which, whether you like to hear this or not, are Judeo-Christian values. And you can Mickey around with that and take prayer out of everything and tear down statues and ban the names of the founding fathers on school buildings and any other building. You go right ahead and do all that. It doesn't change a darn thing. This country's success for over 240 years was based on those founding fathers' dream that we could have a country that operated from the bottom up, that the people were the ones who made all the determinations, and that the government, if kept small enough, would not interfere with the people's rights. That's what that Constitution is all about. That's what the Bill of Rights is all about. Not giving the government power, it's giving you power. It gives me power. And the fact that we tolerate government overreaching, taking our power away from us, and then doing a lousy job educating our children, doing a lousy job controlling public safety. There's crime rising in every major place, every major city. And public health, give me a break. You got people who have never, ever been infected with anything being forced to take vaccines regardless of their immune system. Maybe they had COVID. Maybe they have antibodies. Maybe they have religious reasons for not wanting to take the vaccine. Maybe they're just not sure, since the FDA hasn't finally approved it. Why do we have people knocking on their doors? Is this still America or not? I think the not is the answer. And if that's okay with you, then go back to sleep, all right? And I'll wake you up in 2028, only it'll be too late. And don't complain because you're still inside your house with a mask on. Just don't complain. That's all I can tell you. But those of us that are not woke but awake, we're complaining and we're mobilizing. And let me tell you something. There's something happening. There's a grassroots movement happening. I don't know if it'll be as big and as successful as the Tea Party. Maybe it'll be bigger. My friend assures me it's going to be bigger. And if that's true, and you're still clinging to your Democrat Party registration, put it in your drawer and don't tell anybody. We don't blame you. You belong to a party that once was decent, but is now sick and getting sicker. Let me take a quick break. I'll be right back. Sometimes when I'm right, when I actually predict something and it happens, I get this sick feeling in my stomach. And I keep thinking to myself, I never should have said that. Not that I have any ability to affect fate, It's, in my opinion, there's only one power that affects fate, and it's not me. But I had said at the beginning of last year that my biggest fear was that we were going to see an enormous amount of death inside of the addict and alcoholic population. And today we get the numbers, and unfortunately, I was very, very, very right. Deaths from drug overdoses soared to more than 93,000 last year. That's staggering. That tells you that some of the coronavirus pandemic's toll, when we tried to quiet the crisis, but didn't bother stopping the spread of opioid fentanyl, didn't even bother to continue with a drive against drug use in this country, instead began to liberate pot smokers and this and that. The death toll jumped by more than 21,000, nearly 30% from the year before. And it's not a surprise to me. It shouldn't be a surprise to you. And it's certainly not a surprise to policy experts. And they've been watching this happen throughout the pandemic. I sit on a board of an organization that works with mental health and addiction. And often is the case where both are issues for individuals in the community here in Broward County. And the statistics have been horrifying throughout. We've been watching this throughout. But now the public should be hearing this story, only it's barely covered on the mainstream. It really is. And every one of those people that died, every one of those 93,000 souls that were lost are literally somebody's child or somebody's husband. Somebody loved them. And it's terrifying. That's the biggest increase in overdose deaths in the history of this country. It is the worst overdose crisis in the history of this country, and we're not making any progress. It's really overwhelming. 93,331 deaths in 2020. That's according to the new data. Annual final numbers usually differ very little from provisional figures like those released on Wednesday. So almost 1 million people have died of overdoses. This is crazy. Overdose deaths involving opioids went from 69,000 in 2020, which was up from 50,000 in 2019. Deaths from methamphetamine and cocaine also rose. So imagine. 70% of cocaine overdose deaths and 50% of methamphetamine overdose deaths also involved fentanyl. users aren't even aware that their drugs are laced with fentanyl, which literally stops you from breathing, even if just a little bit is ingested. Right? We knew there were first responders who were just touching this stuff, and agents that were just touching it in busts, and they couldn't breathe. Many of them got very sick. So you're looking at these deaths. They come from people who are using everything and anything they can, and locked alone in their houses without therapists, without AA meetings and anything else. This pandemic really opened up a wide, wide window, a deadly window that a lot of addicts jumped out of. People were more stressed. The people were more isolated, so the people took more. And it's amazing to me that unfortunately, when I was saying that we needed to be very careful about this, that the pandemic limited the ability of users to get medications that they needed, whether it was, Bruprex, whatever they call that, naloxone, the stuff that you give to someone in an overdose, couldn't get it. Couldn't get it. So COVID killed more than 300,000 people last year, and so then we took our eye off the opioid epidemic. Congress treats drug addiction as like a short-term issue and instead of as a chronic problem like cancer and other diseases. And we just need to get past it. It's not like that. It's not like that. So you're going to hear me talking more and more about that. We're not having any progress anymore. At least during the Trump administration, we saw some progress. Now we're in free fall, absolute free fall. And the Senate has a caucus on international narcotics control. Let's see how that goes. When you got a border wide open, when you have coyotes dragging people and fentanyl across the border, willy-nilly, hilter-skelter, guess what? You can predict these numbers to go up yet more. Anyway, don't forget, coming right up at 1 o'clock is the one and only Dan Bongino, followed by Ben Shapiro at 4 o'clock. And in the morning, we'll have Jen and Bill wrap this week up. And I'll, of course, follow not Brian Kilmeade. I think it's Mary Walters sitting in for him the next day or two. And then I'll be back at noon. And then it'll be the weekend. So you don't want to miss a moment. The media doesn't want to talk about, any of the stories that I think you should be thinking about. And I can only guess why they don't want to talk about them, because they're uncomfortable to their narrative. The LAPD, where my son, and who'll be on my show tomorrow, and his family live, have begun to implement a plan to actually divert adults arrested for certain misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies to, quote, community support programs in lieu of filing criminal charges or prosecution, and then you don't have to transport them to jail facilities. It's a great opportunity, they say. This should help us reduce recidivism and enhance public safety. Now, first and foremost, I want you to think about this. Recidivism are people who get repeatedly arrested and end up going back to jail over and over again. So their vision is that somehow they're going to cut down on people committing crimes over and over again by not punishing them when they commit the crimes. They have a better idea. I don't know of any better ideas that have ever worked in the history of mankind. But DA George Gascon and the LA City Attorney Mike Feuer, they are all for it. No alternatives. It's called Alternatives to Incarceration Pre-Filing Diversion Program. And they say this will be much more effective than a time in jail. I don't know to who. Maybe to the people they hang out with. Maybe if you take a college student who's getting a worthless degree in sociology and happens to get arrested for a minor misdemeanor, if you put them in an intervention program, you're probably, going to do all right. But we're talking about people who've been arrested over and over again for things like drug trafficking, for things like armed robbery. Well, maybe armed robbery, just robbery. See, once the arm is placed in there, then maybe they can be incarcerated. But maybe not. I don't know. You can't make this stuff up. This guy, Mike Fuhrer, is a progressive Democrat who's running for mayor of Los Angeles, the attorney. This pilot program provides intervention rather than prosecution. And they all talk the same way. I'm not just imitating him. I'm imitating all of them. All right. We think that recovery is more important than the status quo. I just talked about how many overdose deaths there were. You know which state had the largest amount of increases in overdose deaths? California. Oh, well. I don't want to confuse Attorney Foyer, maybe future Mayor Foyer, with the simple facts that at least when a person who is trafficking in narcotics has to go to jail for a while, they will not be trafficking in narcotics for a while. Just happens to make sense to me. Eligible arrestees. I love this. Eligible arrestees. They make it all sound so lovely. They will be immediately introduced to on-site service providers funded through the county ATI office. So in other words, take money, defund the police, and instead have these county offices with on-site service providers. You know, whoever thought this plan up is married to a social worker and trying to figure out how they can get him a steady gig. Unhoused participants. Now, what is an unhoused participant? No, really. Yeah, I had to look it up. An unhoused participant means a homeless person will be offered shelter and will be transported. Individuals with mental health disorders, substance use issues, or those who are unhoused are eligible to participate and will be screened for amenability. Amenability. Are they going for it? Do they like it? Is this something they want? Let me tell you something. I have known people, you know that I've been going into the jails for a very long time. And I have spoken with many a person who will tell you that the only clean time they ever have is when they're incarcerated. The only time when they're not getting beaten senseless by a pimp or a boyfriend is when they're incarcerated. And they actually kind of relish periodic incarcerations. Just saying. But no, we're going to offer them some direct services. And I guess you're just eligible for this based on your criminal history. And if the DA at the time doesn't think your criminal history is commensurate to any kind of arrest, you won't get arrested. The LAPD 77th Street Jail facility was the first selected for the program, with officials expected to soon expand it to the Metropolitan Detention Center and the Van Nuys Jail. This, of course, is the result of years of organizing by these Abolish the Police people. Well, it's an alliance of the abolitionist activist groups and the election of progressive county lawmakers who are willing to implement this nonsense. The Justice LA Coalition formed in 2017 to stop the county from spending billions of dollars on 2 new jails. And guess who are the organizers? Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors and her longtime ally Mark Anthony Johnson, who has just been awarded a paid fellowship from the Open Societies Foundations, that's George Soros's group, to, quote, push for progress toward a more humane criminal justice system in the United States. And you know what it is? It's humane to the criminals, and it's inhumane to the victims of crime. Hey, I've seen mothers protesting on Gaston's, office, in front of his office, because their kid gets killed, and he's worried about, the killer. You just have to stop being so dug in your political thinking and really open up your heart and your mind. Justice LA is not about justice for the victims. It's about so-called justice for the criminals. And while I believe jails could do a better job with rehabilitation than they're doing right now, I don't believe that you close down jails and you try to get these people the help that they need, even when they're unhoused. I'm so sick of my language being changed. What is homeless now a bad word? We're not allowed to say homeless anymore. If you don't have a home, you're homeless, okay? You're not unhoused. What does that mean, unhoused? Yeah. But that's how they win. That's how we got into the mess that we're in right now, is we allowed them to keep changing the language, to make us feel bad, or to make their stupid policies sound better. It doesn't sound so bad if you have a large unhoused population, does it? Yeah. City of Los Angeles has a large unhoused population. Half the people won't know what you're talking about, and the other half don't care. But when you say, the city of Los Angeles has a homeless problem, people say, I'm not moving to Los Angeles. They got a homeless problem in Los Angeles. As if homeless was some kind of disease. No, it's a condition. It doesn't have to be a permanent condition either. But this is where we are, and this is what we've allowed to happen. And they're going to have supervised consumption sites. That's right. Because a lot of these people have drug problems. So they're going to have supervised consumption sites. Now, doesn't that sound good? What's a supervised consumption site, you ask yourself? It's a legal shooting up house. Or, as we used to refer to them, it's a legal crack house. You can go there and inject your drugs safely. Because, of course, that's what they want. They want you drugged up, but safely. Care first, jails last. That's their vision. And that sounds lovely. Care first, jails last. But you, the average person walking around on the streets of Los Angeles or the streets of New York or the streets of Detroit, tough on you. We're offering care first and jails last to the people who are perpetrating all kinds of crimes against you and your community. Can't have any more Walgreens in San Francisco, but hey, it's not the fault of the unhoused. It must be your fault. Long prison sentences, laws that facilitate police search and seizure laws that make it difficult to get out of trouble when you got in trouble, those happen to be laws that work. Don't listen to these people trying to sell you this crap. Because if you think living in Los Angeles is so much fun, ask somebody who lives there how much fun they're having when their children cannot go out to play without stepping over a homeless person, an unhoused person living in a tent at the end of their block in a middle class or even upper class neighborhood. Ask the parents of that little boy or little girl who can't walk to school on their own, have to be accompanied by a parent or a nanny at all times, because the homeless population is quite argumentative, and you really don't want your child, I'm using all the terms that they use, they're violent is the right way to put it, and they could be violent against one of your children. But hey, it's all in the name of care instead of, incarceration or punishment. Care first, jails last. Anyway, let me take my final break. I want you to stay right where you are. I got a lot more on my mind, and none of it is cheerful news. Most of it is extremely disturbing news, but you're not going to get it anywhere else. So just leave your dial right where it is. Wow. I just looked at a video. It's up at our website, apparently, of the Parkland shooter. I refuse to use his name, although they did use his name on this videotape. Seems to be in the cafeteria or somewhere, and he walks up to a guard and attacks him viciously, and then he gets it was just released. This tape was just released in court on Wednesday. I think this attack happened a couple of years ago. But it's the first time anybody gets to see it. He's like walking around in circles, and the guard tells him to stop dragging his feet so you don't ruin your jail-issued sandals. Cruz appears to flip him off with both hands and then charges at him. And they wrestle for a bit before Cruz throws some haymaker punches. These are crazy video. Anyway, you can see it at the website. What a piece of garbage. Anyway, and I did say there was a story that nobody's talking about, and we need to talk about because it really is significant. The South African President Jacob Zuma was put in jail, and he's serving a 15-month sentence for contempt of court because he refused to comply with the court order to testify in an inquiry that was investigating corruption during his time as president. And there's been violence ever since he was incarcerated. You know, we're trying to figure out how to let criminals out of jail, and they're incarcerating presidents in South Africa, but that's a whole nother show. So there was a little bit of violence here and there, and then all of a sudden they went into these looting sprees in a couple of the provinces in South Africa, and the death toll is up to 78 now. 78 people. It was 72 this morning. Numerous deaths occurred from stampedes as people ransacked stores for food, electric appliances. You got to see this video. It looks just like downtown Portland and downtown Manhattan, with people tearing clothing from stores and handbags and wheeling out electric appliances. I'm talking refrigerators and ovens and stuff. 10 people were crushed to death in a stampede at the Ndofaya shopping mall. At least 27 people were killed in KwaZulu-Natal. 45 were killed in Gauteng, and more than 400 arrests were made in Gauteng alone. What happened is what happened here in the States. You had legitimate protesters who get hijacked by criminals. But here in the States, we're not allowed to say that. They're mostly peaceful. These people are unemployed there, and the situation is worse because of the pandemic. And now you have 2,500 soldiers deployed to aid the police. The riots are still going on, and all the leaders of political, religious, and community organizations are pleading with South Africans to stop the looting and shooting them. Just saying. This is the world coming apart at the seams because we have weakness at the top. Anyway, I thank you for your time this time. Until next time, I will be back tomorrow. We'll have my son Derek from TMZ. We will honor the military, if it be his will and he delays his coming. In the meantime, remember that it's up to you how the rest of our lives go. So get ready, get ready, get ready. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.